Okay, compared to most wars, the Civil War had the most deaths. It ended with 620,000. That's more than World War I and II combined. World War I ended with 116,516, while World War II ended with 405,399. The war with the least amount of deaths was the Gulf War, 258, and the bloodiest battles in the Civil War happened to be Gettysburg, which ended in 51,000 casualties. The one with the least amount of casualties was Vicksburg, which ended with 19,233.
The Battle of Gettysburg happened in late 1863, when Lee crossed into southern Pennsylvania to investigate a supply of shoes in the town of Gettysburg. On July 1st, 1863, the Confederate troops ran into Union troops. Both sides called for reinforcements. The fighting continued for 3 days. 6,000 men from the Union and 75,000 men from the Confederacy faced off in an epic battle. On July 3rd, Robert E. Lee ordered a direct attack on the middle Union line. About 13,000 Confederate troops charged into heavy Union fire. The Confederacy soon retreated and waited for a Union counterattack. The North lost 23,000 men and the South lost 28,000 men. The North won this battle.
Okay, Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809. He was born in Hardin County, Kentucky. Both of his parents were born in Virginia, and his mother died when he was 10. Okay, Lincoln was willing to use force to defend the federal law and the Union.
We're still rolling.
Okay. When Confederate batteries fired on Fort Sumter, he called on the states and got 75,000 volunteers. Lincoln lost on election for senator in 1858 to Stephen A. Douglas. Lincoln gained a national reputation from debating with Douglas, resulting in his presidential nomination in 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863.
Born in Massachusetts in 1821, Clara Harlow Barton was the youngest of 6 children. She supplemented her early education with practical experience, working as a clerk and bookkeeper for her brother. She worked for several years as a teacher, even starting her own school. Early in 1861, Clara Barton returned to Washington, D.C., and when the Civil War broke out, she was one of the first volunteers to appear at the Washington Infirmary to care for wounded soldiers. After her father's death, late in 1861, Barton left city hospitals to go among soldiers in the field. Her presence and the supplies she brought with her 3 army wagons were particularly welcome at the Battle of Antietam, where overworked surgeons were trying to make bandages out of corn husks. Barton organized able-bodied men to perform first aid, carry water, and prepare food for the wounded. Throughout the war, Barton and her supply wagons traveled with the Union Army, giving aid to Union casualties and Confederate prisoners. Some of the supplies, like transportation, were provided by the Army Quartermaster in Washington, D.C., but most were purchased with donations solicited by Barton or by her own funds. In 1863, Clara Barton would travel to the Union-controlled coastal regions around Charleston, South Carolina. On July 14, 1863, Barton moved from Hilton Head Island to Morris Island to attend the growing number of sick and wounded soldiers, a list that would greatly expand after the failed Union assault on Fort Wagner on July 18, 1863. Later in Morris Island campaign, Clara Barton, working out of her tent, would seek to address the growing problems of sickness on the island by passing out fresh food and mail to the troops in the trenches. Despite her greatest efforts, Barton herself would become gravely ill and would be evacuated to Hilton Head Island. In January 1865, Barton returned to the North when her brother and nephew died. In March, President Abraham Lincoln appointed her general correspondent for the Friends of the Paroled Prisoners. Her job was to respond to anxious inquiries from the friends and relatives of missing soldiers by locating them among the prison rolls, parole rolls, or casualty lists at the camps in Annapolis, Maryland. To assist in this enormous task, Barton established the Bureau of Records of Missing Men of the Armies of the United States and established rolls of missing men to be posted across the country. It was her insistence that the anonymous graves at Andersonville Prison were identified and marked. In 1869, Clara Barton traveled to Geneva, Switzerland as a member of the International Red Cross. In 1880, the American Red Cross was established by the accumulation of a decade of work by Barton. She served as the organization's first president until 1904 and continued her tradition of philanthropy as a volunteer in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. Clara Barton died in 1912 at the age of 91.
Hey, do you have a good Lincoln accent? Okay, come read this. Hello.
Hi. Hello. I'm just passing by. Don't mind me.
We're making a blooper.